Jesus is building up his kingdom in Portland. And he's building up his kingdom in Vancouver. And with this entire area. All of creation's been groaning in this area. For the sons of God, for the daughters of God to be revealed. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the victorious church, the victorious kingdom in this area that he's building up. And key to it is each one of you. It's Jesus' kingdom, but each one of us has a kingdom to steward. Each one of us. Whether you're a truck driver, a nurse, a 16-year-old high school student, we all have a kingdom. I want you to just keep your eyes closed. And I want you to picture a map. And at the center of this map is you. And there's a circle of people around that. It's your family. If you have 5 people there, there's a circle around you. You have 6, 4 siblings and 2 parents that are there. And there's your outer family. All your cousins, your aunts, your uncles. Around that's your friends, your close friends, and then your kind of acquaintances. And the people at your school and your workplace, they're around that. And then all the other people that you come into contact with on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. It's kind of a big kingdom, yeah? It's big. And each person, the goal of it is you're at the center there, and the goal is where you would come under the King's domain. You would kind of come under the lordship of Jesus. And as you do that, the Spirit of Jesus would come alive in you, the thought patterns of Jesus. And you would begin to leaven the people around you with Jesus. So you kind of see the center person turning red as they're washed in the blood of Jesus, as the thought patterns of Jesus come alive. And then slowly, as you begin to go throughout the rhythms of your day, your week, your month, your year, you begin to spread the aroma of Jesus into the kingdom. The kingdom is the place, your kingdom is the place in which your personal will can be expressed, and it actually, where people will listen. This is the kingdom. And the kingdom of Portland is made up of the kingdoms in this room, along with other people. And it's significant. You are significant to this. The enemy's first lie is almost always you're insignificant. One of the lies he loves to do is that you need to move somewhere else to be significant. Only if you are a pastor at the center is your kingdom significant. We would all understand that if you move to Lebanon to be a missionary there, that if you build a kingdom up there, you would be significant. And yet, you are just as significant here. And we have to begin to realize that. The way that we begin to express our Father's kingdom is we begin to tear down a kingdom of brokenness, of lies, of condemnation. Their thought patterns, first of all. We tear them down, and we establish a kingdom and thought patterns of righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit. We do that one conversation by conversation. We have to realize we have to begin to get a grip as a community of the significance of small moments in time. A lot of us understand if we walk out 10 years of faithfulness, okay, maybe God realizes that. But he said, if you give someone a cup of cold water in my name, I will remember it.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Wow.
And so the Lord showed me a vision around 4 years ago, and it was a treasure chest. And I went up to the treasure chest and I opened it up, and there were diamonds inside. And I touched a diamond, and it took me back to a moment in time. Actually, I was in Chick-fil-A talking to a friend. It was a 15-minute conversation, very short. And he said, Matt, I will remember that for all time. He said, because you sowed out an element of my heart, and I will treasure that forever. And so it is a treasure to me, and so you get treasure as well.
Wow.
So it is, I believe that most of the treasure from all the human saints in all of history will be 30 seconds to 3-minute moments in which Jesus was either released in a conversation or not released.
Wow.
We release him through speaking of him from a place of knowledge in our spirit. It's a testimony, spiritual principle, a verse, a prayer in which something from the Spirit of Jesus is released. All of us, we're trained in this American context to want a big YouTube presence, or to be on a stage. If we could only get on a stage, if I could only get a microphone. And yet if we would just be faithful to the kingdom in which we're placed, within 5 years, every single person would take on the aroma of your heart. If we would learn to host something first and then impart it. I've seen in my own church how a community of 600 people has been impacted by a few people, 1 or 2 people.
Wow.
There's no conservative church represented here that would forbid you from meeting up with people one-on-one. None.
Come on.
I don't know of any pastor who would forbid that. And if you would simply begin to do that, not demanding to lead a small group, not demanding to get on stage, but simply being with Jesus and being Jesus, you would flip an entire community in 5 years.
Yes, so good.
Deep calls to deep, truth calls out.
Jesus.
Come on.
It is faithfulness in small beginnings, faithfulness to the small moments which will change your city. And I want to encourage you in that. Radical Christianity, again, is not 3 years, it's 50 years of faithfulness to the small things.
Yes.
There are so many of us that want bedroom moments with the Lord, intimacy with the Lord, which we need to have. Too long that has been missing from the church. But a full life of a husband or a wife, it is made up of bedroom moments, but it's also made up of taking out the trash. Right?
Yes.
And so we have to begin. Yeah, we have to begin to see the value in both. There are too many of us that are trained up to go from conference to conference, from worship moment to worship moment, and we sing about the love of God that we have for Him, and we're not willing to surrender, we're not willing to sacrifice, we're not willing to bear the cost. But again, there's a role for what we have been doing this entire evening. There's a role for this. There's a role for this, and it's important, and it's been missing for too long. But we cannot stop our faithfulness to Jesus based entirely on receiving in those moments. There has to be something deeper. There has to be contending. We receive His love freely with no striving, but we contend to bring a kingdom down because He's worthy. I believe we're building the most amazing generation that the church has seen in hundreds and hundreds of years. It's people who we're building up sons and daughters who know the voice of their Father. This is something that has not been taught on for centuries. If I don't even know when. And why is it so important? Because it is the voice which gives a sense of value and identity. The truth is that we as men and women, we are born for the need for affirmation. We're born for the need to have a relationship with someone. The problem comes when we do not know our Father's voice, we have to seek out affirmation in our external reality. So many men, they seek it out in women or money or title or position. A lot of women seek out their sense of value in their looks. Receiving attention from the men in the room. It's very common. Receiving compliments from ladies. The problem is that whenever we need that, we become a slave to those things. And it is unbecoming of a free man or free woman to be a slave to anything that's not eternal. And so as we learn our Father's voice, He begins to speak identity over us and value. And we must come to a place as an individual first, and then as a community where His voice comes to mean everything. It has to be that way. But that's what's available, and that is what the Lord's building up. We have to be more concerned by His voice than anything else. The Lord's also showed me, actually, through conversations with Daniel, the reality of the saints looking on the stage that we are on. There's a stage, and all the saints of heaven look down on us. and they cheer us on. And the characters are changing out every 70 or 80 years, but they cheer us on. And so it's become such a reality to me that if I'm alone in a restaurant, and if everyone in that restaurant thinks I'm crazy, I know there's a billion people looking on, and my older brother, and that's all that matters. And so I will go for things radically, because that's become a reality.
Yes.
So we have to begin to be captured by the reality of the saints in heaven. His voice empowers us. And just as we are becoming a strong generation, and I do not say that to appeal to the natural pride that would exist within us as individuals, to just think we're the coolest thing in the world because it's our time, but because it's a reality. If you look back, if we look back 50 or 60 years, it was very rare to see even miracles in the body of Christ. Very rare to see these things, and yet, we live in an age where 15, 16-year-old girls and boys are going on the streets and healing people in the power of Jesus, who's walking in a deeper sense of identity than many people, again, 50, 60 years ago, even leaders. The Lord is doing something. And we are building up a generation that no matter how hard you hit them, how hard you attack them in the church, that they respond back in love, because they've been so captured by their Father's voice. And that is strength. It's a person that's no longer controlled by their external reality. You can hit them hard, you can insult them, and they're going to love you back.
Come on, yes.
At the same time, the world is creating the weakest generation, I think, that's existed in hundreds of years in the West.
Wow.
It's a person where, if you do not agree with them 100%, they go into a temper tantrum. If you do not validate their inner world and the frailties of it 100%, that they go into a temper tantrum. And so you have incredible strength arising and incredible weakness arising. And it is within the hearts of men to desire strength. Whether you're someone in the world or whether you're the hard, fast Christian, we all watch war movies, and the men that we respect are those when the bullets are flying around, that they're not controlled by their external reality, they're controlled by an inner need for virtue. There's something within us that values that strength, and that is what we are becoming. And we must realize this. The world is filling the world and media with lies that we are weak, that the church is weak. Even the church bashes the church. But we are set. We are set for a reformation of our society that people will talk about 100 years from now. And you are a part of that. The enemy tries to keep you out by keeping you defeated in your thought life. So there's a rising church, and there's a very weak world. Beyond that, the world lies to everyone and says that they're just body and soul. When we are most spirit, we are spirit beings first who happen to live in an earth suit. And so they're training up an entire generation, and the generation is trained up for materialism, work in this rat race of the American dream, this rat race is going the next thing, and they know it's empty. And so many of them are going after, even here, witchcraft and different kinds of things, because the need of a man is for their spirit to be met first. It is everything. And yet so many of us, we shy away from talking about the things of the Spirit. We shy away from talking about that, when it is the very thing that they are crying out for. The truth is, we are supernatural creatures with a supernatural longing for relationship. And we must begin to attack conversations from that reality. We cannot shy away from it. It is the Spirit of Jesus which will call into their spirit and call them up into Him. The generation is ripe for Jesus. Again, the lie that we would believe, it is a lie that we are weak, that they're going to win, that they are the victorious kingdom. No, we are the victorious kingdom. And Isaiah 9:7 says, of the increase of His kingdom there will be no end. We will either bring our thoughts and our inner man into alignment with that, or with the enemy's lie, that His kingdom has no end. That we are going to live to see the death of Christianity in America, that we're going to live to see the death of our Father's kingdom, and it is a lie. We must believe that we will see radical increase in our cities and in our communities. It must be the foundational element for every thought that we have. And every lie that seeks to exalt itself against the knowledge of God and the expansion of that kingdom must be put down in our minds. We must stop being defensive in how we explain the gospel. People know when you really believe something. I do evangelism all the time at this Bible school. People know whether you really believe something because they're going to hit you hard. For example, we were evangelizing last Monday. We came up to a woman and we were sharing, and she said, "Oh, all that Jesus stuff is just a bunch of nonsense." And I told her, "You know what? I was just like you once, but I don't have the option to believe that anymore because I've seen too much. And so I assert the supremacy of my world and my value system. I do not seek to explain something. No, if anyone's going to be ashamed of having a lesser worldview, a lesser conception, it will be her, not me, because I have seen too much." And I told her a story about a miraculous healing I saw of a blind woman in Russia. You throw a rock right through that worldview, and she can clean up the pieces with the Holy Spirit's reminding her of the beauty of Jesus and the reality of Him. I don't respect any other worldview other than my King.
Come on.
There's no other voice, there's no other claim that you can throw at me. I'm not going to hesitate. I will love you 100%, but I will speak the truth. I will speak with such boldness and meekness that you know I'm either insane or I'm right. And I don't care if they say I'm insane. We must come to see a victorious church.
Yes.
Every time we meet someone, there's two atmospheres meeting. You host an atmosphere. It's an atmosphere of Jesus, and they host an atmosphere of unbelief or whatever it is. And our job is not to react to them. It is for us to say so much truth that they must react to our truth.
Wow.
There's confrontation, and this is where we have to become warriors. We must be worshipers who war. Warriors who worship. 400 years ago, Muslim armies surrounded Vienna, and there was a Polish king who went to its defense. And he had a vision one night of his warriors dressed up like angels, and so they all made angel wings. And they went into battle against, there were superior forces against them, and they did a cavalry charge of thousands of horsemen, and they were all humming Polish hymns. And this is something that's gripped me. And so we must become that. I love the charismatic church. And I love it more than anything because we walk in such truth and sweetness with the Spirit. But we must become worshipers who war, who contend for something boldly. Our songs mean nothing. All the love in the world filling us means nothing if it does not flow out of us. If it costs us something, let it be so. Again, sometimes the elephant in the room is our eschatology or our view of the end times. I believe that one of the lies that the church believed in the 70s and was the prosperity gospel, but also this idea that the end times are right around the corner. And we don't know when it will be. But we must believe that future generations are coming. We must live our lives in that accord.
Yes.
Let us say Maranatha, but let us build faithfully.
Yes.
Come on.
He said that He's coming back for a church without spot or blemish. And so I think we have some time ahead of us. That's what I think. And you end up sowing your life out differently. So I dream about a church that's going to be born in 2050, 2060. And they're going to come of age, so when they're 30, it's going to be 2090. We had an older brother, Jesus, who laid down all of his tomorrows and in his last dying breath handed us a baton and said, "I've earned everything, and I want you to enjoy this." And so will we live as radically to say, I will give up every moment, I will give up every day for a future generation I will never see because I love my King that much? Will that grip our hearts? Will we have faithfulness when the conferences end?
Yes, come on.
Will we dig our own furnaces in the secret place on our own?
Yeah, come on.
Or do we just need big men and big women to come in and lead us?
Yeah, come on. Come on.
Amen.
Wow. Jesus.
Come on.
We must be captured by the reality of heaven and by future generations. By sowing in faithfully in small moments, by the significance of one person. The church is the largest population in any given city. It's bigger than any minority group, and I don't mean ethnically. What I mean is whether it's homosexuals, whether it's witches, whether it's different people, liars and thieves. It doesn't, there's no sin that's greater than another. But I simply mean that it's greater than any other minority philosophical group, and yet it doesn't always seem that way. Because they keep us divided. We stay divided. The youth and just the youth groups in this room, fully represented, probably well over 1,000. And 1,000 young people dressed in similar t-shirts and clothed with the Spirit of Jesus could take over Portland. It would destroy the forces of the enemy in a few weekends if it was released. I truly believe that. 1,000 sons and daughters would destroy the enemy's kingdom here in a few months if they were united. We are one church. The way that we begin to do that is by beginning to honor, by beginning to reach out across churches and build brotherhoods and sisterhoods and family. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be faithful to our own church. Every man has the right to think that his wife is the most beautiful. And everyone has the right to brag on their church in a good way. To be proud of their pastors. But there's one church in this area, and it's Jesus' church. And we have to begin to realize that. The way that we do that is to begin to proactively seek those relationships. Coffee. If you work and there's a Baptist person in your work and a Pentecostal and people who go to other churches, begin to fellowship. Go out to lunch with them. Build a church within your business. They are your church. Begin to root for each other. Begin to love on each other. It is these communities and these steps of honor that will change Portland, Vancouver.
Hallelujah.
Thank you, Lord. I want you to begin to meditate and to imagine what increase will look like in your church communities. What freedom would look like in your church communities. Just begin to meditate and to pray for that. Whatever your church is, just begin to pray for that right now, individually. There's something about when we begin to meditate, we begin to see in the Spirit a future reality. And it brings our heart into alignment with the will of God. Without vision, the people perish. The vision of the Lord can place in your heart now as you begin to press into what revival and reformation looks like in your church. It can be vision which will give forth the strength in the weeks and months and years ahead.